let the flame wars begin in the comments section, as I know they probably already have. My opinion on this particular one is probably going to be pretty controversial because there are a lot of people that still love this one, that still think it's a great movie, and there are some that find it even better than 2, which I personally don't see, but you do you, your opinion. And then there are some people that think it's painfully average. Me, I'm kind of in the middle. What do I mean? Well, let me tell you all about it. Just please be nice in the comments, okay? It's literally all I ask of you. And yes, that was my actual hair under there. It's not a wig. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Animation Station, also say for anything and everything animation, and welcome to the final throwback review of the Kung Fu Panda trilogy leading up to Kung Fu Panda 4. Let's talk about Kung Fu Panda 3. I have been wildly conflicted on this movie. First time I saw it, I was really disappointed. I was on the side of people that thought it was average. It was a huge letdown, a big disappointment. And then I watched it a second time. I saw some merit. I saw some good things, but I still had a lot of problems. And this third watch, I'm literally dead center in this argument. Kung Fu Panda 3 is, in my opinion, an entirely subjective opinion, a really good movie that's also a massive disappointment. Now, don't get me wrong, like I said, the movie is really good. It is a very good movie, it is an entertaining movie, and it's still worthwhile in its own right. But, compared to 2, it is a huge drop-off. I have a I can't talk today, I apologize. I have a pretty long written review for this one, and it pretty much sums up all my problems with this movie, as well as the things I do like about it. So, just take this with a grain of salt, nothing more than a personal opinion from someone who's been a huge fan of this franchise since he was a kid. And just, please be kind to me in the comments section, okay? Just my personal opinion, I'm not trying to attack you, okay? So with all that said and done and out of the way, here's my written review, spoiler-free written review, of Kung Fu Panda 3. Trying to follow up to a film as legendary as the second one was always going to be a difficult task, and while this one definitely tried to one-up it in terms of its scale and its ambition, sadly, it just couldn't reach that level in execution and fell woefully short. That doesn't mean that it's a bad movie, though, as this is among the better third installments of a franchise I've seen. But it doesn't hide that this is still a pretty big disappointment. Again, coming off the heels of a masterpiece like 2 that was expected, but not to this degree. Let's start with the positives first, because there is still a lot to like here. The animation is still great with a lot of color and even more style than the previous 2 films. The characters are good and plenty likable, and most of them are still in character for the most part. The story is ambitious, which I can give them admiration for. The voice acting is still excellent, in particular Bryan Cranston as Poe's dad. Yes, that Bryan Cranston, the guy from Breaking Bad. And he does a great job here as Poe's dad. The action is great. I mean, it's Kung Fu Panda. Of course, the action is going to be great. The story is still good. I don't know why I put story twice. I apologize. The final battle is excellent. The action is still impressive. The ending is satisfying. The Chinese mythology and culture is still treated with great respect, just like they did with the Viking culture with How to Train Your Dragon. The emotional moments still hit when they need to, and the philosophical messages are still well done and well delivered, and don't feel forced. But, okay, I gotta take a drink of water for this one. Because I have a feeling I'm about to get pretty heated. Unfortunately, though, unlike the previous installment, this one's bogged down with a lot of issues. The villain, while cool on paper and having a really cool design, is very mediocre, especially in comparison to Lord Shen from the previous installment. The humor is very hit or miss, like, instead of it always landing with only a few, maybe a bit questionable, this one, it was barely even funny. Like, there were some funny jokes and there were some lines I did get a good chuckle out of, but a lot more of the jokes were missing than the last two. Which leads into another complaint I have a little later on. Poe, despite going through development, feels dumbed down and at times outright stupid. Like, Poe is almost outright Flanderized in this new installment. And at times he can act unbelievably stupid. Like, frustratingly stupid. The potential of the Panda Village, that was the big draw of actually getting a third installment after the end of the second movie, is pretty much completely lost in nothing but jokes. Literally, just nothing but jokes. There's one cool final battle where the pandas get involved, but outside of that, it's just a lot of jokes and a lot of wasting time. The tonal whiplash is back in full force, and even worse than it was in the original, being even more inconsistent. The pacing is wildly all over the place, sometimes being too fast, sometimes being too slow, and maybe if freaking Saturn is eclipsing Jupiter, it'll actually be somewhat correct. The writing is not nearly as strong or sharp as before, and instead is just at best average and just feels like the writing of every other average DreamWorks movie. The callbacks to the original are far too prevalent and feel like blatant nostalgia bait. Like, look, callbacks to your original is not a bad idea, and some of them were neat, but this movie does it so much, it pretty much uses it as a crux. Like, it uses it as a crutch, is what I'm saying. And they use it so many times, it's obvious that they're trying to appease the older fans coming in that have been with this franchise since the beginning. But in my opinion, it's just an easy excuse out of lazy writing. Rewatchability is pretty low. Runtime feels bloated despite being even shorter than the second movie. And the third act is extremely rushed. This is still a really good movie despite everything I've stated, and it is by no means bad. But it's definitely the weakest of the three, and a pretty big letdown compared to 2. It tries to be serious and story-driven, but instead it's just far too silly most of the time to be taken even remotely seriously. Feeling more like the television show Legends of Awesomeness, rather than a true third installment. I'm sorry for being so harsh, but it really should have been so much more than what we ultimately got, and we deserved better. Especially after sticking with this franchise for as long as we have. Yes, this is still a really good movie. Yes, it's still in the upper tier of the DreamWorks films. But the disappointment just stings. Like, even all these years later, this movie came out in 2016. All these years later, nearly 10 years later, this movie still freaking stings every time I watch it, because I go into it thinking maybe this is the time it'll finally click. And I'm just left bitterly disappointed every single time. Even when I saw it the first time, I was extremely disappointed. The disappointment has weighed off a little bit, but every time I watch it, it's still gonna sting, because you know that it could be so much better than this. But there's obvious shortcuts taken, and it is pretty much rushed out the door. Like, it's hard to explain without spoilers, but my point is, I don't hate the movie. I still think it's a very good movie, but they sometimes say that disappointment is worse than being outright bad. And with this one, it kind of is the honest truth. It's still a very good film. I can see why a lot of people like it. There's still a lot to enjoy, and there is still effort here. But it just felt like it was being put in the wrong areas, and it felt like it lost its vision of what it was actually trying to do. And not only that, this was the big conclusion to the franchise until now when we're getting a fourth. And for a conclusion to a franchise, while this conclusion itself is nice, the actual overall product just feels out of place. I better stop because I'm going to end up talking in circles, but final verdict for this movie is a solid but very disappointing, lowest of the franchise, 7 out of 10. It is still a very good film. It still has enough to warrant at least one watch, but the disappointment you're going to feel by the time you're done with it is immeasurable. But, like I said, there are those people that do love this movie, and if you do, continue to love it. It's just my personal opinion, and it just doesn't work for me. The weakest of the trilogy, no doubt, but still overall solid and worth watching at least once. From what I've heard, the fourth is about the same, and I didn't like the trailer very much. So I'm going in with far lower expectations and just really hoping it's good at the very least. Like, if it's up to this level, without being a bitter disappointment, I'm willing to be nice to it. But if it's below even this, then there's some serious problems. Sorry these throwback reviews have to end on such a sad note, but I started reviewing movies in the first place to give my honest opinion, so I can't lie about my opinion like I'm IGN. Please continue to love this movie if you already know that you do. Sadly, it's just not for me. It's a one and done. And half the time I even forget it even exists. Yeah, pretty disappointing note to end on, and I'm sorry. But hopefully, DreamWorks can pull its head out of its rear end and give us something good. Because after watching Megamind 2, this company cannot afford any more failures this year. So, that's going to conclude our journey with Poe for now. Sadly, it ends on a pretty weak note, but hopefully this new installment will bring the franchise back up to the quality that we all know it is very capable of doing. Will it be better? Well, tomorrow we're going to find out for sure. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and until we meet again, I'm Dad Small of Animation Station. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this almost every single day. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this movie or this trilogy in the comments down below. And just give me your overall thoughts on my reviewing style, or if you think I'm being too harsh, or if you think I'm not being harsh enough, like, just give me whatever feedback you want. I am more than open to constructive criticism. So, just don't be a douche. That's all I ask. And that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until we meet again, I'm Jat Small of Animation Station, and I'll see you next time. Peace.